Smoke from 100 cookfires crawled up the stone ribs of the city and was torn to threads by the river wind. Tyrion stood in a balcony embrasure of the Tower of the Hand and breathed the tainted air like a man testing wine with a wary tongue. He could smell tar and tallow and the faint chemical sting of the alchemist's remnants, ghosts of the wildfire that had devoured the Blackwater and made him, briefly, a savior. Below, the city lay like some battered, sleeping beast. Ribs of streets and scarred hide of rooftops, fleas of men moving through the dusk. Bootsteps whispered behind him. He did not turn. "If you have come to tell me my father slept without nightmares, Varys, I shall send you to buy softer pillows." "I came," said the eunuch, "to bring a different softness, a rumor." Tyrion sipped the dregs of wine, rolled the last red on his tongue. "Rumor is a cheap courtesan. Give me a queen." Varys moved to the other side of the embrasure, careful to keep the light on his face and cast Tyrion's into shadow, one of his little stagecrafts. "A queen may be involved, or a winter queen to be. The hand means to wed you." "Of course he does," Tyrion said. "To a horse, if it will pull his cart." Varys's hands folded like white birds settling on a branch. "To Sansa Stark." The goblet paused on its way to Tyrion's mouth. "Ah!" The single soft vowel escaped like a sigh caught on a thorn. "And thus to lay his long red hand upon the north. He is nothing if not consistent." "Men praise consistency in their rulers," Varys said. "It spares them the trouble of guessing what will be demanded next. Men praise many things. They praised me when I saved them from their king." Tyrion set the cup down and let the wind cool his scar. He could feel the ridges like the mapmaker's relief of some country no one would visit willingly. "You do not come to me with only a rumor. You come with a path through the rumor, a scheme folded inside a scheme, like a meat pie. Cut it." Varys folded his lips, closed his eyes briefly as if smelling the pastry's steam, then opened them again. "Would you be Lord of Casterly Rock, my lord?" Tyrion closed his eyes and saw it as he had seen it in dreams. The world's great lion squatting over the blue, the red banners streaming, the sea gnawing at its feet. He had been a child sucking sugared lemon when his father sent him away from its halls. The taste had soured to gall and never sweetened again. "I would be the thing I was born to be," he said. "If birth means anything." "Birth," Varys said, "means nothing until men agree it does. Men of the West might be coaxed to such agreement. Men love a strong seat. There is no stronger." "And the occupant?" Tyrion asked. "The castellan of the strong seat bristles with spears. My father does not leave the lion's den unguarded. The rock is a den with many mouths." Varys looked toward the dark west as if his eyes could leap the leagues and see the high stone. Some open to the sea where the waves gnaw at old mine tunnels. There are smugglers' tales of a water gate. There are Lannisport guildmasters whose knees ache when weather changes and whose purses ache more often, and who remember the day your father's men set 1,000 looms to work without waiting for their say. The West is full of men who benefited by the stringent order of Lord Tywin and full of men rubbed raw by it. Silk chafes as hard as haircloth if pulled tight. "You paint the West as a bed sore," Tyrion said mildly. "You have a salve?" "I have names," Varys murmured. "A harbor master whose son likes dice more than sense. A rope maker who quotes the seven while stealing from them. A salt wife with 3 husbands and none of them a husband who will refuse coin for guidance in the dark. There is a certain ironmonger's guild that bids under the scent of your father's approval but would buy steel at a lower cost if one were offered. And there are men who will fight for you because they have done so before." Tyrion smiled. "Shagga, son of Dolph, and his merry ladders of mayhem. Do mountain men float?" "At need," Varys said. "Even mountains learn to swim. And bronze swims atop gold as ducks atop a pond." Tyrion rubbed at his scar. "If I steal the rock from the father who will never give it, what will I do with it? Sit in its belly while he starves me? The sea mouth feeds wolves only if the wolves have ships." "Lannisport is full of ships," Varys said, "and full of men who can be convinced it will remain full only if a lord resides above them who is not at war with their purses. Keep faith with the town, and it will keep faith with the rock. Your father thinks in terms of banners and oaths. Merchants recite ledgers. Ledgers can bind tighter than vows. The wind shifted, bringing the river stink. Tyrion lifted the cup again and found it empty. If I am to play Lon the Clever, I shall want a better costume. He looked at Varys, and for a moment the jest fell away and something naked stood in his eyes. If I fail, I vanish. He will make me vanish as he did the girl. Varys's lashes lowered, lifted. Some vanishings cannot be undone. Some can be avenged. I prefer compensation to vengeance, Tyrion said. Vengeance is like a brothel. Costly, addictive, and frequently disease-ridden. He breathed the wind again and tasted iron, and in that taste was the echo of a place where the air smelled of dry stone and the sea spoke in the belly of the earth. Bring me my mountain, bring me a ship, bring me the men who know the dark mouths of stone. I will bring the rest. Your father, Varys said, means to announce the Stark match in a fortnight. Then I have a fortnight to make myself unmatchable. Tyrion's mouth twitched. Tell the alchemists I require a few jars of prayer. They call it wildfire, Varys murmured, but there was the hint of a smile in the shadows. I shall whisper in the right ears. Tyrion turned from the balcony at last. We are all ears in this city, he said, and every ear is pressed to a door. He lifted the empty cup before replacing it. If I am to steal a mountain, he said, I must begin by walking down. He found Bronn at the back of the peach, though the peach no longer called itself by the name. Someone had painted the sign, covered the fruit with a crown. The crown had a bite taken from it. You, Bronn said when Tyrion ducked beneath the lintel, look like a man who's found a way to make me rich and get me killed. Again. Only the first part is certain, Tyrion said, and sought a seat that was not sticky. He found none. He sat anyway. We are sailing. Good, Bronn said. I have not drowned this month. West. Bad, Bronn said at once. There are Lannisters west. Men who hang you for stealing a purse and knight you for stealing a castle. They will have no name for what you have in mind. Lord, Tyrion said. That is the name I have in mind. Bring the mountain men. Bring any sword with a hand at the end of it that cares for gold. Bring rope, more rope than you can picture in your black sleep. We are going to tie knots around a lion's throat. Bronn scratched the stub of beard on his jaw and grinned. How many? A few score who will not ask questions, Tyrion said. A few hundred who will ask the right ones. And 1,000 who will not arrive until there is a gate to open. You want to take the rock with 50 men, Bronn said. No, Tyrion replied. I want to open it with 50 men. Like a purse. Purses bite, Bronn said. Ask the men with the missing fingers. They should not have fumbled. Bronn's grin widened. You talk the way a man talks when he is either very drunk or very certain. Which is it? I am neither, Tyrion said, and poured himself wine from the shared jug without asking who had bought it. I am very tired of being told what I am not allowed to be. Shagga, son of Dolf, sat on 3 stools because 2 had already died beneath him. He was chewing something that had once been a pig and was now an argument. I do not like the water, he told Tyrion. It is sneaky, like a woman with a knife behind her back. Also, it drowns men. It also drowns sheep, Tyrion said. Have you ever tried to drown a hill? Shagga considered this around a mouthful. Hills drown you. Not this one, Tyrion said. This one breathes. It breathes the sea in and blows it out again, down in its belly. There are tunnels like a goat's entrails. You can crawl in them. You can come out behind a man before he knows you were ever born. Timett, son of Timett's one good eye gleamed. Fires burn in tunnels. They will, Tyrion said, at the right moment. He let his hand fall open on the table. Coins lay like tame beetles in his palm. There will be gold upon gold if you crawl where I tell you, hit when I tell you, and do not decide you prefer the taste of Lannister blood to the taste of Lannister bread. Bread is softer, Shagga said. but blood is warmer. Bread stays, Tyrion said gently. Blood dries. Bread you can feed your sons. And yourself. I cannot promise you Lannister blood will ever run out. I can promise you Lannister bread will not, if I sit in the lion's chair. Shagga tore another piece of argument. If I drown, I cannot eat, he observed. If you drown, Tyrion said, lifting his cup, the stranger will peel you a pear with his teeth. If you do not drown, I will. Shagga thought this over, then snorted, which with Shagga meant consent. Timett said nothing, and with Timett that was also consent. Bronn drained his own cup. We will need a ship that does not ask questions, he said. Varys will find one, Tyrion replied. We will also need a reason to be in Lannisport when we arrive, other than treason. Rope helps, but rope is not a reason. We are merchants, Bronn said. We have lovely green oil to sell to the stupid Westermen. Heave up a jar, sniff that. It's holy. Holy fire. I would not sell wildfire within sight of our target, Tyrion said. The gods have a way of laughing when men play at being them. He rubbed his lip. No, we are merchants and we sell rope. Rope for ships, rope for cranes, rope for men to hang their enemies with, rope for women if they prefer. Lannisport is a harbor. Harbor men use rope the way priests use words. And we will bring rope, Bronn said, with the grin that showed his bad tooth. But inside the hemp we coil steel. They left before dawn in a fog that ate the river's banks. The ship Varys produced was a tavern with a mast, a low-slung cog with a belly too ready for coin, and a captain called Roff who had the eyes of a man who had shot his own dog and never spoken of it. Tyrion stood on the afterdeck wrapped in a plain hood and watched the black water cup the hull and pull. King's Landing slid away like a dream one wakes from reluctantly and then gladly. Above the city, the sky lifted by slow inches as if pulled on ropes that creaked. The sea met them by noon, wearing its winter gray, chopped by a wind that liked to slap. The mountain men spat into the waves as if fighting a duel. Shagga grinned as the ship rose and fell. Look, he roared. The ground is drunk. Bronn looked at Tyrion and said, If a man pukes on me, I throw him over. Throw him downwind, Tyrion advised, clutching the rail as the ship lurched like a staggerer. Throw him toward the rock. Varys had given letters and names. Tyrion learned them leaning above a map nailed to the captain's board. Harlowturn, harbor master. Dennequay, who married thrice. Boren Greenhand of the Rope Guild. A boy called Tar who knew the drain where a man could vanish into the city and be spat into the world below the rock. He learned tides, too, for tides are politics made water. What leans when what pushes, and how long a realm stays still before it reverses and drags everything with it. At night, he walked the deck and let the wind wash him. He found himself thinking not of his father, but the rock itself, the shape of its chambers he had held as a child like a secret toy in his fist. His steps had echoed in its bones once. A small boy's clatter down corridors lined with dead lions, each with a name like a coin. He had learned their histories the way other boys learned to throw a ball. He had not learned to be wanted. He knew every story of Lon the Clever, the tricks and songs and lies that make a house, and he had wondered as a child whether the first Lannister might have been small. Smaller men slip through locks. Smaller men fit into cracks. It is easy to hide a blade in a clever hand. He smiled without mirth and kept walking until his feet were numb. Lannisport rolled from the fog like a coin from a sleeve. Roff brought them in under a false name, a false manifest, and real rope. Rope lay in neat coils upon the deck, coarser hemp above, and beneath it oiled canvas, and beneath that the truth of steel. Grapnels with curved teeth, lengths of chain dressed in tar to keep them quiet, a dozen iron hooks with throats cut wide, and long knives wrapped in lambskin. Tyrion wore a merchant's coat with buttons like boiled peas and spoke with a riverland's burr that would have fooled his own mother, had he known her. Harbor men came with hooks and voices and took the ship's weight from the sea. Tyrion listened to the language of the port as a man listens to a new lover's breathing. Cranes creaked, gulls made mockery. Men swore in the comfortable way of men who swear every day. Beyond the forest of masts, the town clambered up the slope in a crowd of tiles and chimneys, and beyond the town the rock shouldered the world. It towered, a dark fist against the pale day, its windows pricked with eyes, its bastions like knuckles. The sound of the surf grinding under its base carried like distant teeth. In Tyrion's chest, something old and small and furious stood up. They came off the ship by dribs and drabs, so as not to be one pour of men. Bronn went first to find Greenhand and grease him. Shagga and Timett did not go at all until night. Tyrion had forbidden that particular spectacle. He and two of the Sellswords, men who had names like coughs and never used them, went instead to find a boy called Tar. Tar was a sliver with a scar that pulled one eye into a permanent squint. He sat with his feet in a drain and his hands in his shirt, warming his fingers on the heat of his skin. He looked Tyrion over like something found in a fish's belly. "Here to be swallowed?" he asked. "Here to watch a lion breathe," Tyrion said. Tar's good eye flicked toward the rock. "Cats purr. They purr before they bite. This one purrs with the sea. Where does it purr loudest?" Tar grinned with 3 teeth. "Come at low tide and I'll sell you the sound." He spat in the drain, then cupped the trickle in his hands as if to show the tide in miniature. "There's a place where the town shits into the world," he said. "Follow it, and you get to a place where the world shits into the rock." "You are a poet," Tyrion observed. "I'm a boy," Tar said. "Pay me to pretend I'm a rat and I'll pretend." "Be a rat tonight," Tyrion said. "We will be cats." At dusk a bell in the harbor moaned for the tide. Night carried wetness like a cloak. Tyrion walked at the center of a small pack of men whose boots made no conversation. Beneath their cloaks ropes swayed like tame snakes. Shagga came last, stepping as if the ground had been laid new for him and he suspected it. They entered the alley Tar had shown, a run of stones slick with old things, and descended. The drain stank like an oath. It also sang, a thin metal moan where water dragged over caged grates. Torches were dangerous here, smoke crawling low and slow. But Timett's one I saw what others missed. They went bent back through a stone throat that grew tighter, and then, as Tar had promised, looser again. The sound changed. Tyrion heard the sea then, not in waves but in breath, a drawing in and a pushing out, slow as the sleeping of a giant. The tunnel widened to a cavern where black water humped and fell. The smell altered too, salt and something clean beneath the rot. A faint glow came from lichens that furred the stones like pale moss. Shagga hissed a laugh. "The mountain has guts," he said with satisfaction. "I like a place with guts." "Do not cut them," Tyrion said. He could feel the rock around him not as stone but as a living thing, an animal whose bones he knew by story if not by touch. He laid his palm against the damp and felt vibration, the old engine of the world turning. "There will be a gate," he said softly. "There must." Timett found it with his hands. The bars were iron, thick as a man's wrist, webbed with barnacles that rasped like voice. The gate was set into the stone with cunning, its hinges hidden like fish in their caves. Bronze men unwrapped tarred leather and drew out iron. Grapnels kissed the bars and held. Rope lay like river on stone. "Up," Bronn said, and 2 men climbed the roped net of their own making, muscles cording like cables. They looped a slender, saw-toothed wire round a hinge and pulled like patient fishermen. A minute, 2. Tyrion felt his heartbeat drop into his gut and stay there, heavy as a stone. Something gave with a sound like a sigh. The gate settled a thumb's breadth. Water licked it like a tongue through teeth. Timett put his finger in the gap and smiled, and that was a frightening thing. "Fire later," he said. "Steel first." Shagga took the bars in his hands and worried them. Iron complained, stone answered. The men pulled the wire again. A quiet murder repeated, as slow as winter. Once a fish skittered across Tyrion's boot, and once something touched his ankle and moved away like a thought. The gate dropped another finger. Bronn's breath went out in a curse. Between 2 bars there was now a space where a thin man might put his head and a smaller man his shoulders. Tyrion took off his cloak. Bronn's hand closed on his sleeve. "No." "Yes," Tyrion said. "You are the only dwarf I've been paid to keep alive," Bronn said. "I'd like to keep my reputation." "You are paid to open this gate," Tyrion said. "If I go through it, I can open the one beyond." He looked up at the bars that had filled his dreams since before he had known their shape. "There are locks you open from the inside. That is what I am for." He looked at Timet. "If I drown, take my gold. If I live, I will take yours." Then he turned sideways, hugged iron with his ribs, and went where there was barely room for a memory. The barnacles clawed at his scar and left no mark. The water rose to his breast and then to his chin. The sea breathed out and he went with it, stove into a pocket of air, heard his own breath loud as any bell. The sea breathed in and tried to take him. He made his body smaller, a thing the size and shape of intent. He emerged on the other side slick and grinning like a seal. There was a second gate, this one of stout oak banded with iron. There was a ladder to a door, a narrow stair cut in the rock like a scar. There were rusted chains for winches, and a rat that watched him as if waiting for the moral of the tale. The lock was old and honest. Tyrion set his ear to it and heard a language he had learned in a different life, the small clicks and whispers of tumblers. He spoke to it with bits of wire while water licked his boots and the sea counted time. The bolt drew back with a sound that might have been a sigh or a yawn. Tyrion put his shoulder to the door and it moved. He turned and shouted, and the shout came back to him, a smaller echo, a child's voice answering. He felt the bars shiver through his hands when the men outside heaved. The gate came down inch by inch, then fell the last with a cough of spray. Men poured through, silent men, their mouths pinched, their eyes wide, carrying rope like contraband. "Up," Tyrion said, and they went up. The stair was slick and had places where it had chosen to be a waterfall. They climbed by rope and will, and at the top there was a door no bigger than a coffin lid. Bronn eased it, lifted it by degrees. Cold air touched Tyrion's face like a woman's palm. He peered. A lamplit passage ran along the inner skin of the rock, a servant's artery. He could smell tallow and old linen and the imperishable dust of stone worn by human passage. "Now we are in the lion's throat," he said softly. "Let us see if we can make it cough." Ser Benisbrax, castellan for the rock in Lord Tywin's absence, had a black fox on his surcoat and a habit of pushing his tongue into the gap where a tooth should have been. He received word of a scullion's late errand and a broken chain in the belly chambers with the bored contempt of a man used to both. He sent 2 guards of House Lefford's levy to make a report, waited, sent 2 more, then frowned when the second pair did not return in the time it takes to dice 3 throws. By the time he reached the corridor himself with 6 men and a lantern, the lantern showed him a door ajar where no door should be, a scent of cold water where there should be only cold stone, and a rope coiled where no rope had been. He opened his mouth to call for more men and saw, as if conjured by the thought, a small man standing 5 paces away with a blade in his hand and the look of a man who is both pleased and tired. "Ser Benisgat." The small man nodded as one nods to a host. "This is the part," Tyrion said, "where I invite you to surrender your keys." "How in?" Ser Benis began, and Bronn's knife man stepped from the shadow and laid steel to his throat, and Ser Benis closed his mouth with a clack. The lantern threw the fox across the wall as if it would run. "Keys," Tyrion said, "and no shouting, please. The rock is sleeping. I prefer to wake it with a lullaby. There is an art to taking a castle from within. It is not the art of slaughter but the art of speed." Tyrion moved like a man who had studied the corridors in his dreams and now, at last, walked them in waking. He knew enough to ask when he did not know. He asked the right servants in the right tone, and men who had spent their lives passing unnoticed obeyed him as if he had always been there. In a quarter of an hour he had the keys to the water gate, in a half he had the guards at the watchstairs trussed as if for festival goose, and in that same half Bronn had sent the rope signal down the shaft that told the men below to bring the second wave by boat. Shagga's hand opened a door like cracking a walnut. Timet walked through torchlight as if he had invented it. The cell's words moved with the casual precision of men whose lives cost them nothing and who preferred to keep them for a while yet. They went up through the rock, past storerooms that smelled of grain and salt beef, past armories where stag helmets twitched on racks, past tapestries of lions that watched with gold thread eyes. Tyrion's heart beat with a slow, incredulous joy. In the great hall the banners slept. They woke when the doors opened and men came in who were not supposed to be there. Tyrion walked to the dais, climbed the 3 shallow steps, and turned to face the room. He could feel the carve of the throne's arm beneath his palm, the faint polish of old oil. Ser Bennis was brought up between 2 men who did not look like his men. He had not shouted. He stood with pride and the absolutely necessary amount of fear. "Ser Bennis," Tyrion said, "you are a loyal man. In an hour, you will have the opportunity to demonstrate that loyalty to House Lannister by swearing to me. Or, if you prefer, you can be loyal to my father and die in his name. I am a small man and indifferent to men's choices, but do not choose slowly." "By what right?" Ser Bennis said, throat working against the sword point that kissed it. "Do you sit that chair?" "By the right of iron and blood and old words and older absence," Tyrion said. He let his and rest there, just so. "Jaime is sworn. I am not. The rock belongs to a Lannister who will claim it. I am claiming it. That is the one right no man can take away. The right to claim. The rest is proof." He looked at Bronn. "Open the windows." The windows opened. Dawn was crawling out of the east on its belly. The breeze came in with the smell of salt. Below, Lannisport stirred. Above, the rock listened. The banners stirred too, as if hearing a different wind. Men began to come in small knots, drawn by the noise that was not noise. A septon came, wringing his hands to keep them awake. A kitchen boy came, holding a ladle like a sword. Tyrion smiled at them all without showing his teeth. "Send word to the town," he said. "Not the word my father would send. Send bread. Tell the guilds that their levies will be reduced for 1 year while we repair old neglect. Tell them that under Lord Tyrion Lannister, the docks will not be impressed without fair payment. Tell them rope is a sacred thing and I will not tax it twice. Tell the fishermen I will buy their catch at market price for the garrison's pot. Tell the miners, the miners. Tell them I will add a 6th share to the Fellows' Fund for the widows of men who fall below. And tell anyone who has a complaint that the door will be open at noon every day, and there will be a chair put aside for them where they may speak and be answered. Though I warn them I have a sharp tongue and a sharper memory." "You intend to rule a town," Bronn observed, one eyebrow making an upward journey. "How quaint." "I intend to rule a rock," Tyrion corrected. "The town comes with it. You cannot own the lion and starve the thing it feeds on." A murmur had grown at the edge of the hall. It rolled in like a tide when a tall, raw-boned man stepped forward with a gold lion on his breast and an uncertain set to his mouth. Lord Lefford, Tyrion thought, and hid the knowledge behind a mild look. The Leffords were old and proud and had a great gold mine under their hill that had once fed Lannister coffers with fattened streams. Tywin had thinned them with his stringencies. A proud man does not forget stringency. "My lord," Lord Lefford began, hesitant on the pronoun, as if the sound would mark him forever and he wished to test it before anyone heard. Tyrion held him with his eyes and the ghost of a smile. "Welcome. You come in arms," Lefford said and licked his lips. You stand where Lord Tywin stands." "I stand where he refuses to allow me to stand," Tyrion said evenly. "But I did not come as a thief in the night to carry off your daughters or your goods. I came because the rock was missing a lord and tired of waiting." He spread his hands. "If you swear me fealty, I will swear you protection. If you swear my father fealty, I will say that is not unwise, and we will write your name on a list. Either way you will be fed and paid and given justice that stings when you deserve it and soothes when you have been wronged." He leaned a little, let his voice carry the soft irony he wore as armor. "What I will not give you are songs about me. I dislike songs. They leave out the inconvenient verses." Lord Lefford's mouth struggled and then settled. He went to one knee. "My lord." There was a sound then in the hall like the first pebbles of a landslide. Men are little, but little stones start great falls. The septon knelt, murmuring to himself. The kitchen boy stared and then dropped the ladle and knelt also, which made a bigger noise than any vow. Ser Benisbrax closed his eyes and swallowed his pride and said in a clear voice that sounded like a man throwing better bones than he expected, "My lord." He surrendered the keys. Tyrion sat. News runs faster than horses along the sea. It ran to King's Landing in the beak of a gull that happened to arrive above a ship that happened to leave at once. And it ran from that ship to a knight with a slanted shield. And it ran from that knight's mouth like wine into Lord Tywin's ear. Tywin was at supper. He set his knife down very carefully and dabbed his mouth with a cloth and looked at the man who had told him. "Repeat it," he said. The knight swallowed. His Adam's apple jerked like a man attempting to climb a wall with his feet. "The dwarf," he said, with that sick courage men used to stab themselves, "has taken Casterly Rock." "Say my son," Tywin said. The knight did not, in the end, manage to find that courage. He bowed until his forehead almost touched the rushes. "Your son," he muttered. "Your son has taken the rock." Tywin sat a moment, still, not as statues are still but as cats are, a stillness predatory and deliberate. He lifted the goblet, tasted wine, set it down. "How many men?" he asked. 50 at first, my lord. Then more by the Watergate. The town has not risen. The town seems pleased. The town," Tywin said softly, "is a whore. It smiles at any man with coin." Cersei's breath hissed in beside him. She had not spoken during the telling. Now her mouth smiled and it had knives in it. "He could never have done this alone," she said. "Varys." Tywin's gaze moved without seeming to move. "Varys is a spider who knows how not to be stepped on. My son is a rat who knows how to squeeze through cracks. Spiders make webs. Rats chew them." "He has made himself a lord," Cersei said. The words like blades thrown at a door after a quarrel has already ended. "He has made himself an enemy," Tywin corrected. He put his hands on the arms of his chair and stood as if no part of him would bend for any part of the world. "Send word to Ser Adam Marbrand and to my cousin Davin. They will take their levies west at once. I will write to Lord Sarsfield and Lord Lefford. If either of them has bent the knee, I will attempt to forget it. If either of them has not, I will attempt to forgive it. Have the gold cloaks keep better watch on the river. Rats are clever." "What of the North girl?" Cersei asked, some thing like hunger quick in her voice. "Wed your brother to her in his absence," Tywin said without looking at her. "Bring in the high septon, bind the vows on paper, bind them again if he returns. The forms are the thing. Forms make realities." Cersei's tongue tasted the idea and liked it. "And if he comes back with an army, will we welcome him as Lord of the Rock when he walks through our door?" "He will not walk through our door," Tywin said. "He has built himself a new one." He looked at last toward the west. The candlelight turned his eyes to metal. "He has also placed his neck in my hand. It will take time to close that hand, but it will close." Tyrion discovered what any lord who is not a fool discovers the first week of rule. Men do not eat intentions, and a castle is a beast that consumes more bread than poetry. He ate with the garrison and with the guild masters, one at a time and two together, until their names lay on his tongue like a sure song. He walked the quays and let the harbor smell wash the city smells from him until the salt lay on him like fine dust. He opened the door at noon and listened. He did not win every argument, but he won enough. He sent ravens with his seal to every house that owed a lion a coin. Lefford, Sarsfield, Swyft, Payne, Prester, Craighall, Westerling, Brax. He sent others to houses that owed only suspicion. He wrote to the Iron Bank in a hand as neat as a steward's, and though he smiled when he signed his name, he did not joke within the lines. He did not sleep much. When he did, he dreamed of the rock as a living animal, turning in its sleep and grinding its teeth. He would wake and go down into the mines, where the smell of old stone could make a man forget the world above. The miners showed him veins that ran into the dark like rivers into oblivion. He listened to them the way he had once listened to singers, with courtesy and disbelief. Men sang of gold. He preferred the song of iron. Nails for bridges, blades for men, bars for gates. He bought iron and charcoal to feed it, and lime for mortar, and hired a dozen masons to rework the old water stairs. He gave Shagga a room in the outer ward where Shagga could pretend to be a bull and no one would mind. He gave Timett the keys to the armory and the right to burn anyone who attempted a theft. He gave Bronn coin and left him unwatched. "Men will come," Bronn said, when Tyrion stood with him on the sea wall and watched the winter sun lie weakly on the water. "Your father will send them, and so will his friends. Siege is a dull game. We could make it interesting." "We will," Tyrion said. "We will also make it short. If he comes quickly, he will not have time to close every finger. If he comes slowly, the hand will be elsewhere." "Where?" Bronn asked. "In the Riverlands," Tyrion said. "In the Reach. In the court where a boy king sits and a queen thinks and a man like a knife smiles. My father has many fingers. I am not one of them. That is my advantage." "You are a finger he cannot bend," Bronn said. "He will cut you off." "Let him try," Tyrion said, not bravely, but with the weary humor of a man who has already been cut in half and continues to walk. Jaime came at last, not with an army but with a question. Tyrion saw him first on the inner battlement where the sea wind had no decency and swung a man's hair, or what was left of it, into his eyes. Jaime's hair was shorter now, and so was his confidence. The missing hand made him lopsided in some way deeper than balance. Tyrion's heart wrenched at the sight and then composed itself, because hearts are useless things when men have to speak. "You look like a man who lost a glove," Tyrion said. "I left it on a pole by the trident," Jaime said, mouth crooking. He looked past Tyrion, up at the mass of stone that made the world small. "I have seen many walls," he said. "I have not seen a wall that is also a mountain, that is also a house, that is also a church, that is also a vault for bones and treasure and oaths. I have not seen one since I was a boy." "This one remembers you," Tyrion said. "It remembers how you ran, and how you did not fall." Jaime's eyes went somewhere else and then came back. "You have done a mad thing," he said quietly. "Yes," Tyrion said. "It seemed the only way to avoid another." "Father is coming," Jaime said. "Of course he is," Tyrion said. "He will bring Marbrand and Brax and SWFT and Prester and a siege train and a plan to starve me. It will be a very good plan. He is very good at those." "I did not come to argue strategy," Jaime said. His eyes found Tyrion's scar and did not flinch. "I came to ask you why." Tyrion looked at his brother and thought of a girl in a crofter's hut and a story told to punish a child. He thought of a crossbow and how easy it would be to solve questions with a bolt. He thought of the way darkness pools at the edges of a candle. "Because he would not let me be what I was born to be," he said. "Because he would not let me be what I made myself into. Because I saved a city for a king who hated me and a father who found it inconvenient to praise me. And because every step I took to be a Lannister saw the door shut again and the bolt drawn. Because I am tired of rooms where my legs don't reach the floor and men pretend not to see. Because this is ours, Jaime. Because it is mine." Jaime's mouth moved. "You sound like Lon," he said. "Lon wore my size," Tyrion said. "So do his tricks." Silence then, filled with the sea. Jaime turned to look toward the west where the sun made a red coin of itself. "Father will not yield," he said. "He will try to end this quickly. When he cannot, he will make it long. He knows how to make long things fatal." "I have wildfire," Tyrion said, as if they discussed a dessert neither of them fancied. Jaime's lip lifted. "I have learned to dislike that word." "I will not burn the town," Tyrion said. "I may burn the sea." Jaime looked at him sharply and in a way, as if the very shapes of the thought had edges. "He will be here in a week. Or 2. Or less. Then we will speak again," Tyrion said. He hesitated, then added, "Do not fight for him against me." "You ask too much," Jaime said. "I am his son." "So am I," Tyrion said. "That is why I ask it." Jaime's laugh was brief and without mirth. "I find myself short of hands," he said, "and thus of choices." He turned as if to go, then stopped. "Tyrion." "Yes. When I was young," Jaime said, and his voice went quieter. "I told you a tale about a girl." Tyrion felt the world tilt. "No," he said. He did not mean no, do not speak, or no, I do not wish to know. He meant only the word itself, the shape of refusal made sound. Jaime spoke anyway. It was not true. The sea breathed. The rock did not move, but something within it shifted for Tyrion. A great slow stone turning. He stood very still and tasted the iron of his own blood and did not remember biting his lip. Jaime told him the truth, and each word was a small clean wound. And because Jaime was Jaime, he made each cut carefully, so it would hurt but not kill. When he was done, Tyrion's hands were cold. "Why now?" he asked. "Because you have made yourself what you are," Jaime said. "Because you should not carry a lie into this place with you. Because it is time. Because Father sent you," Tyrion said. And Jaime let him have that lie to strap on over the truth. "Do not fight for him against me," Tyrion repeated, and his voice was an iron bar that had been bent and would straighten again. "I will not," Jaime said, and descended from the wall with a swordsman's balance that had nothing now to do with swords. The siege came like winter. Heralded, prepared for, and still unpleasant. Ser Adam Marbrand set his banners on the hills beyond Lannisport and sent men to sit where men must sit for a long time in bad weather, wondering why they had not been born with wings. Davin Lannister's camp went up like a small city, and the smell of cooking meat made it into the town as easily as flies. Tyrion arranged patrols in the mines with lanterns and bells. He created a new duty in the watch rolls called the Listener, whose task it was to put his ear to the stone and report what the stone said. Stone speaks under siege, in a groan here and a soft scrape there. He paid men to hear. He held council in a chamber beneath the western tower where the ceiling bent like the inside of a rib cage. Bronn sprawled on a bench and looked as if he were considering whether the ceiling would fall. Shagga was oiling an axe as if he meant to seduce it. Timett warmed his hands over a small coal that was not there. "We could sally," Bronn said cheerfully. "Burn their food. Shit in their wells." "We could," Tyrion agreed. "We will, but not where they expect. They have dug a new trench by the water meadows. Have the men in the mines open the old aqueduct and let the sea into it at high tide. Let it fill their trench from underground. Then, when the tide goes out, we open the water gate and let 2 boats out with men in leather who carry oil. They will crawl in the mud like crabs and light the trench from beneath. Let them call that clever and write a song. I will listen." "You do not like songs," Bronn reminded him. "I like them when they rhyme with food." "They will also try the sea," Timett said without looking up. "They are not fools. They have boats. They will find the mouth." "They will," Tyrion said. "But it is a long mouth with many teeth, and I have greased the first 2. The third will bite. Have the pyromancers bring 3 jars down, not more. And have the men who carry them sworn to the mother and to me and to their own breath." Shagga looked up. "I will carry one," he said. "You will not," Tyrion said. "I prefer you alive. You may stand beside the man who does and kill anyone who jostles him." Shagga grinned. "Good," he said. "I like killing men who are not trying to kill me. It is a surprise for them." The first attempt came on a night with no moon and a sea like glass. Tyrion stood in the dark belly of the rock in a chamber that smelled of salt and iron and held 3 jars that looked like the kind fat women keep pickles in. The men who would carry them had faces Tyrion could not have described an hour later. He knew their names anyway. He told them a joke. They did not laugh, which was right. Then he told them the truth. "If one of these breaks," he said, "you and I and everything we can see will not exist. Do not break them." He sent them out in boats that were barely boats, and he stood with Timett and Shagga and 24 other men in the cavern where the water sighed in and out. He could hear, in the quiet way the sea is loud, the chuckle of oars where none should be. He could hear the scrape of wood against stone and a muttered curse in a Westerman's voice. He raised a hand. A man on the ledge above him let fall a weight that struck the water with a flat slap. The sound ran along the surface like a hair. In its wake, men shouted. The first jar went into the water like an egg and the world became green. It did not roar as it had roared on the Blackwater, bellowing to the sky and eating ships. It hissed like a snake and crawled along the wet stone and reached for breath. The cavern lit like a lantern put down by a god. Men who had come into the rock with quiet oars went out on fire that clung. The jars did not explode so much as unfold. Tyrion watched until one of the burning men reached the place where the tide sucked out and was dragged away still burning, like a star being swallowed. 2 jars would have done, Timett observed. I am trying to learn moderation, Tyrion said honestly. He did not cheer. He did not like this green miracle any more now than he had the night he used it first. He respected it. Respect is colder than fear and cleaner. He watched until he was certain none of the men in the water still mattered, then turned away without speaking, because it is a lord's task to spare words where other men spend them. Cersei sent ravens. When ravens did not suffice, she sent men. They came in 1s and 2s, in half companies, in a thin line like ants that have smelled dead sweetness. Some of them tried to bribe the gate servant. He took their money and did not open the gate. Some tried to set a fire at the town's granary. They were smothered by women with wet blankets because the women's children slept nearby, and a woman is a terrible thing near a child. One group thought to take Shagga unaware in a winehouse. They were buried in their cups, 2 of them alive very briefly. Tyrion received a letter with his name written in a lovely hand that might once have petted his hair. He read it alone. He did not burn it. He tucked it into a book of the Rock's old accounts. He took it out again at night and read it by a candle, then blew the candle out and sat with the darkness for company. He sent ravens too. 1 to the Eyrie, where he had once flown from a sky cell without wings. 1 to Riverrun, where he wrote to a lady he had never met. 1 to Old Town, because bankers and gods both lived there and both liked to be addressed formally. He wrote to Sansa Stark and did not send the letter. He wrote to Shae and burned the letter with a hand that did not shake. He wrote to his father and sealed the letter with a lion's head and slept afterwards for an hour without dreaming. When Tywin came at last, he came with banners that blotted a quarter of the horizon and wagons like patient beetles bearing iron and wood. Tyrion watched from the high outer battlement and thought of ants again. He watched the men put up a pavilion the size of a church for 1 man to sit in, and he wondered what gods Tywin thought he prayed to inside it. The parley request came at dawn of the 2nd day. A white flag with a red edge fluttered like a bad tooth. Tyrion laughed at that, appreciated its rough poetry, and sent word back that he would receive his father at the lion's mouth. It pleased him to say it. Not at a tent set on stolen ground, but at the place where the rock itself breathed and kings would suffocate if they did not learn to listen. They met at noon where the sea spoke to stone. Men stood at a respectful distance watching the tide, as if the tide might decide to become a troop and charge. Tywin came with 2 men and a guard of 10 behind them. He walked a little more slowly than Tyrion remembered. He had lost nothing but time. He gave none of it away in greetings. "You have made me ride a long way," he said, and the old contempt lay in the wrist of each word. "You did not have to come," Tyrion said. "You could have sent more letters. I always enjoy those." "You have committed treason," Tywin said with the mildness of a man correcting a child's sums. "I have committed inheritance," Tyrion said. "There is a difference a lord should know." Tywin's eye flicked to the cave mouth, to the chain and the doors that had seemed myth when he was a youth and had now been oiled on his son's orders. "By what right do you claim it?" "By the right you taught me," Tyrion said. "The only right that matters. I have it." "You do not have it," Tywin said, with that soft incredulity he reserved for moments when the world refused to be the way he arranged it. "You sit upon it. There is a difference rats fail to grasp." Tyrion leaned his shoulder against the wet stone. "Jaime cannot inherit. Cersei cannot inherit here, not as things stand and not without the realm remade to please her. You did not have the courage to remold the law for her. I am what remains when you refuse to change the world and the world refuses to change itself." "You are a deformity," Tywin said, and some of the quiet went out of the air. The men behind him went still as men in paintings. The sea went on breathing. "I am a Lannister," Tyrion said. "The house our name built sits above us. If you like, I will tell you the names of every man who carved his mark in its bones." I know them all. It seems a childish trick until the child becomes a man who sits in the chair you would not allow him, and then it becomes prophecy. You were always a clever child, Tywin said. Clever children think tricks are truth. Truth is heavier. Truth is that you needed me when you lost your first war, Tyrion said softly. Truth is that when you won it you forgot my name. Truth is that if I had waited to be named by you, I would have died of old age before I was 20. Truth is that you have made enemies of everyone, because that is the only thing you are truly good at. I have made myself the enemy you deserve. Tywin did not move. Surrender the rock, he said at last, as if the intervening words had been a noise, something men must make before they remember their tasks. Return to King's Landing. I will name you to the council. I will refund your expenditures from the royal treasury. I will even acknowledge before my household that you did what you did out of a misguided notion of right. Tyrion smiled. If I surrender the rock, he said, I will be dead before I cross the Mander. He let the smile fade. Do not offer me council seats and acknowledgements as if I were a dog to be tossed a bone. Offer me what you withheld. Name me what I am. Then we will speak of terms. You ask me to put a leper in my bed, Tywin said, and it was almost a marvel, the fatigue beneath his precision. I will not. Then you will build tents, Tyrion said, and eat middling meat and pretend not to notice the damp in your boots. You will sit, and you will try your cleverness in the old cage of time. We will see whose patience is longer, yours or the rock's. I warn you, the rock has been sitting a long while. You think you can feed a castle and a town under siege? Tywin said with contempt that made a man think of hooks. You cannot. The sea is treacherous and your smugglers are not my friends. The sea is treacherous, Tyrion agreed. It loves neither of us. But it does not hate me yet. Tywin's mouth went thin. I will pull you down, boy, he said in a voice so soft Tyrion felt it more than heard it. I will pull you down and you will learn that you are small not by birth but by fact. You have played at lawn for the length of a rumor. Now we will see what you are without stories. I have always lived without stories, Tyrion said. When men spoke them, they left me out. It is remarkable what you learn when no one is telling you who you are. They looked at one another while the sea breathed for them. When they parted, Tyrion felt as if he had survived a sickness and was not yet certain he was well. The war in the Riverlands turned at a dinner someone did not finish. Word came oily with haste. A wedding that was not a wedding, steel under a table. A king's blood spilled on a hall floor. He should have tightened Tywin's grip. It loosened it. The Freys squabbled over the leavings like dogs, and the river changed its bed in flood. The Ironborn sent long fingers into the reach, and the Mander became a throat with a fishbone stuck in it. Men who should have marched west were summoned south and east and told to sit in new fields under different flies. Cersei sent another letter. Tyrion read it and did not answer. Jaime did not come again, but a basket of loaves arrived tied with a strip of red cloth that had once been a sash, and the bread was better than siege bread. Tyrion shared it with the miners as if it were a parable. The guildmasters continued to come when called and sometimes when not called. Lord Lefford sent word that he had set his levies to guard his mine rather than give them to Tywin, which was courage or fear disguised as courage. Ser Bennis Brax took to taking the noon chair and listening to complaints with an attention that surprised Tyrion until he remembered that some men grow when they are told they are allowed to. The second assault at the Watergate was slower, cleverer, and more dangerous. Tyrion had grown used to hearing the stone. That night it sounded wrong. He woke in the dark with the wrongness pressing him and went down with Timett and 3 men in bare feet. He heard, rather than felt, the ladder slide into place on the other side of the gate. He almost called for the jars himself. Instead, he put his mouth to the metal and spoke. "Father," he said, his voice making the iron hum. "If that is you, do come in. It is cold." There was a pause. Then there was the scrape again, and the ladder moved away like a line being reeled in by someone who knew he had hooked a rock. "Pity," Tyrion said to the stone. The stone said nothing, which was good. If stone began answering, he would be further gone than he suspected. It ended not in a blaze but in a corridor of old rock and old breath. Tywin chose patience. Tyrion chose impatience disguised as patience. The winter wore on without truly arriving. Men died of fevers and knives in equal numbers. Lannisport did not starve. The Rock did not starve either, which surprised everyone but Tyrion, who had remembered the storage vaults on the 4th level below the West Hall and had them inventoried and then filled again, and remembered the underground pond where blind fish lived and had it netted in turns to keep its population steady. He learned the names of the blind fish as if they were lords. He learned the names of the children who came to ask for bread, and the names of the women who came to ask for justice, and the names of the men who came asking for neither but listening for both. It did not end until the night Tywin came into the Rock, not by the sea but by the lie men tell themselves about how safe a lord is in a place he believes he understands. There is always a servant who opens the wrong door and always a guard who trusts the man walking behind him because the man looks exactly like the man he expects. There are always two men who stand where one should, and the one who will believe he is the clever one and the one who is the clever one. Tywin did not come alone. He was not mad. He came with 6, including a Brax who had sworn him privately, including a Sellsword whose price Tyrion would have paid if he had been asked. It was a good plan. Tyrion would have admired it if it had been aimed at someone else. He met his father in a corridor that had seen more dust than men in a decade. They looked at one another over 3 feet of stone air. Tywin had a sword. Tyrion had a crossbow because some patterns cannot be resisted. "You will do it like this," Tywin said. He did not bother to make it a question. "How appropriate." "I prefer talking," Tyrion said. "You prefer not listening. You are a coward." "Yes," Tyrion said, "and alive." The man behind Tywin moved at the wrong time. Timmett's knife opened his throat with the tender efficiency of a man cutting his own bread. Bronn stepped out of a shadow with another man's shadow, and that made the right number of shadows. Shagga appeared where there had not been room for him to appear and removed a problem. Tywin's sword came up and stopped where good training is a religion and religiosity cannot stand against physics or bad luck or cunning set in the right place. The crossbow steadied. Tyrion's finger did not tremble. In the space of 2 breaths, 1,000 years of Lannister iron will balanced on the point of a quarrel. "Do you truly mean to kill me?" Tywin asked, and if there was fear in it, it hid like a mouse. "And end yourself?" Tyrion swallowed. "To end myself, I should have let you go on. To end myself, I should have returned to your table, bowed for your scraps, and been grateful to be called the dwarf at my lord father's right hand, in the manner of a dog. I am ending something else." "What?" Tywin demanded, and that was the only time Tyrion ever heard that word from him unclothed of every garment except need. "A lie," Tyrion said. Tywin lifted his ch. "You are no Lannister." "I am the only Lannister," Tyrion said, and loosed. The quarrel took Lord Tywin Lannister at a place that left him breath for half a moment. He used it to attempt a word. Tyrion did not stay to hear which one. It would have been something clean like fool, or something dirty like whore, or something that wanted to be both and was neither. He stepped back and lowered the bow. He did not know he was crying until the tears cooled on his scar. Bronn wiped his blade on a dead man's cloak. Shagga put his ear to Tywin's mouth as if listening for stories. Timmett watched the candle flame and did not blink. "It is done," Tyrion said, and felt none of the release the words promised. It is one of the world's older jokes that endings do not end. He walked up out of the deep belly of the rock while men moved below him like fish. He came out upon the parapet where the wind had clean hands. The sea was the same as it had been when he arrived. Moving and unmoved, a contradiction bound in a single skin. Lannisport woke to the news as towns wake. A ripple, a murmur, a shout. The camps beyond the walls learned as armies learn, in curses and orders and men shoving things into bags with the wrong hand. Some banners drew back as if from a fire. Some clenched tighter as if hands could crush truth. Many rained, as rain falls on men who want sun. Tyrion went down at noon and sat in the chair he had marked for listening. Men came to shout and whisper, give thanks and threaten, ask for bread and offer swords. Lord Leford came with his oath and a book of his mind's accounts under his arm, as if the marriage of oaths and numbers delighted him. Ser Bennis Brax stood on his right and called the petitioners with a voice that had become confident. The Septon blessed and scolded and whispered sideways to a woman in a tone that made Tyrion think better of him. The town breathed. At dusk, alone for a moment that seemed contrived by the gods for a jest or a benediction, Tyrion stood at the westward window of the High Lord Solar and watched the sun attempt to set the sea on fire and fail. He put his hand on the stone of the window ledge and felt it warm still from the day. He thought of a girl in a hut and a boy in a hall and a man in a tunnel and another in a camp. He thought of the word he had ended. He thought of the ones that would replace it. He thought that he was tired and that he would be tired for a long time, and that this was all right. Footsteps sounded behind him. He did not turn because he knew them. The careful, well-taught, brave footsteps of a boy who had learned to be a man in a place that ate boys. Podrick remained 2 paces back and cleared his throat with his apology. "My lord," he said. "A letter." "From whom?" Tyrion asked without looking. Podrick hesitated, which made Tyrion turn. The boy's face was open and trying to close. He held out the parchment like someone offering a snake. It's from Lady Sansa," Podrick said. Tyrion took the letter from his squire's careful hand. He held it a moment longer than was necessary, feeling the weight of the seal. He did not break it yet. He stood with it at the lion's window and listened to the sea as the rock breathed in and out. Then he pressed the wax. The script inside was neat and brave. It spoke of a court where laughter cut like knives and a queen who smiled with a mouth full of them. It spoke of a boy-king made of sweetmeats. It did not ask for rescue. It did not speak of love. It said only, in a line at the end that had caused the hand to grow smaller and more tense, that winter was coming and that she hoped he was warm. Tyrion folded the letter carefully and slid it into his sleeve. "Find me the man who knows the captains who are not afraid of winter," he said to Podrick. "Yes, my lord," Podrick said. He did not move. Tyrion added. "The town will be frightened. Give them tasks. Frightened men who work are less frightened." "Yes, my lord," Podrick said again and was gone. Tyrion turned back to the window. The sun had failed its work and gone. The sea kept breathing. Somewhere below, a bell tolled for the change of watch. He did not feel triumph so much as a terrible easing, as when a blade finally comes out of a wound and the bleeding starts but the pain becomes something a man can set his teeth in. He put his palms on the stone and thought of how long it would take to change a house, a town, the angle of a throat at a table when a dwarf walked in. The rock did not speak. Tyrion did. He said the words a man says when he has chosen not to stop. "Very well," he said to the night. "Let's begin."